for your testimony. We will now turn to questions from the panel. I'll recognize myself for 5 minutes. Administrator Bedford, the National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA, of 2026 includes Section 373, which in my opinion does not improve safety in the DC metropolitan airspace and instead maintains similar operational exceptions that existed at the time of the tragic mid-air collision over the Potomac that claimed 67 innocent lives just 11 months ago. And as written, this provision effectively gives the military very broad discretion to operate under concurrent waiver authority without enhanced tracking or broadcast requirements that could prevent mid-air conflicts at the low altitudes. Administrator Bedford, are you familiar with this language? And if you are, do you envision any safety concerns that could arise if it's enacted as currently written?
Well, thank you for the question, Chairman Nehls. I'm told it's FAA policy not to comment on legislation while it's going through the process, and I will try to respect that. I will advise the committee that normally when language like this is discussed, it's customary to reach out to the FAA and ask for a technical consult or some form of technical advisory. I can tell you that did not happen in this case. We learned of Section 373 essentially when everybody else did last week. But let me be clear, regardless of what, let me be clear that our intent is not to go back to where we were prior to January the 29th. As long as I'm administrator, and I believe it's true as long as Secretary Duffy is Secretary of Transportation, we are not going to go back into a position of less safe airspace environment. We will monitor the airspace with vigilance and with safety first.
Well, I'll simply put for me, I do not believe that the military should be conducting any classified training missions or check rides up and down the Potomac River in one of the most congested Class B airspaces in the country. I don't agree. Administrator Bedford, given last week's announcement that Peloton will serve as the prime integrator responsible for overseeing the administration's air traffic control modernization plan, what distinct role do you envision Peloton will be playing, and what guardrails do you have in place to ensure that they are being held accountable to the deadlines and efficiency metrics?
Well, again, thank you for that question. I think it's on everybody's mind on this committee and frankly within the administration that modernization not turn into another next-gen boondoggle. We need to make sure that modernization gets done on time, and achieves the results that we've set before this committee, which is to deploy new technology within the next 3 years. That's off-the-shelf technology, not some new technology that may or may not be created over the next several years. So Peloton's mission is to assist the FAA and then frankly to lead us in thinking about how to execute modernization when we get to what I think are extremely challenging issues for us. That is migrating from traditional TDMI analog systems into voice over internet protocol, digital architectures. These are not competencies that the FAA has internally. We need assistance from people who've done this before. Peloton brings us that experience.
Fair enough. You mentioned you talk about the one big beautiful bill, the $12.5 billion, the down payment. You know, it's it's laid out there. It's right on this sheet here. It says $4.75 billion for telecommunications, $3 billion radar replacement, $500 million runway safety technology, another $80 million for automated weather observation. I mean, it's all laid out there. $1 billion for the potential with TRACONs, another $100 million for ARTSIs. How do you feel that is going? I mean, where are we at with the 12.5? I mean, how much have we spent? I mean, how are we doing with the 12.5?
Well, just as a way of giving the committee some insight on how we're thinking about this, we've adopted a mantra of think slow, move fast, understanding what the end state of modernization needs to look like, and then determining how best to plot a course to get there, as opposed to just let's go out and spend money. So we've spent the last 4.5 months plotting out what the end state of the NAS should look like, the National Airspace System, when modernization is accomplished. And it's an exciting vision, and I'd be happy to get into more detail with you on that. But to directly answer your question, we've committed by the end of this year over $6 billion of the 12.5. That's on telecom infrastructure, new radar surveillance systems, all of which will be deployed over the next 2.5 years.
I think that's a beautiful thing. When we passed this one big beautiful bill, I always talk about quarterly reports. So we passed this in July, and it says no later than 180 days after the date of enactment of this act, and every 90 days after, the administrator of the FAA shall submit to Congress a report. So we're talking sometime in January of 2026. Are you prepared? Are you going to be able to come up and submit a report that says, hey, this is where the 12.5 is being spent, and fulfill your commitment here by law?
Absolutely.
We're good? All right. With that, Mr. Carson, I yield to you, sir. Thank you, Administrator Bedford.
Thank you, good Chairman.